A summer used to last forever. Think back one single summer as a child stretched out like an open field, endless afternoons, days that refused to end. Now an entire year can vanish between two blinks and you find yourself asking where it possibly went. Nothing about the clock has changed. A year is still exactly a year, but the real reason time feels faster is far stranger than getting busy or getting old, and it has almost nothing to do with the clock at all. Time is not speeding up, you are. To understand what that means, you have to separate two completely different kinds of time. There is clock time, the kind a stopwatch measures, steady and indifferent and always the same, and there is mind time, the kind you actually live inside, which stretches and shrinks depending on what your brain is doing. The clock never changes, your mind does, and the gap between the two is the whole mystery. So start with a simple question: why did a single summer feel so vast when you were 8? The first answer is the one most people reach for, and it has a name. It is called the proportional theory, and it was first suggested by a philosopher named Paul Janet in the 19th century. The idea is almost insultingly simple. When you are 1 year old, that single year is 100% of your entire life. When you are 10, a year is a tenth of everything you have ever known. By the time you're 50, a year is just 1/50th of your life, a thin slice of an ever-growing pie. Each passing year is a smaller and smaller fraction of the whole, so it feels smaller and smaller as it goes. It is an elegant idea. It is also not enough, because the feeling is not really about the size of the fraction. It is about something happening inside your head, and to find it you have to look at how your brain actually stores time. Here is the strange truth: your brain has no clock. There is no organ inside you ticking off the seconds. Instead, your sense of how much time has passed is reconstructed after the fact from memory. Your brain looks back at a stretch of time and essentially asks one question: how much happened here? How many new things did I have to record? A period crowded with new memories feels long when you look back on it. A period with almost nothing new feels short. You do not measure time as it passes. You measure it by the footprints it leaves behind. And now the whole thing cracks open, because think about what a child's brain is doing. To a child, almost everything is new. A first thunderstorm, the first time the ocean touches their feet, a new word, a new face, a new fear, a new street, all of it landing for the very first time, all of it getting written down in vivid, permanent detail. A child's year is packed wall to wall with first times. So when they look back, that year is enormous, dense with memory, impossible to fit in a single glance. That is why one childhood summer can feel longer than an entire adult decade. Now think about your year. You woke up, you took the same route, you did work that resembled last week's work, you ate familiar food, saw familiar faces, scrolled familiar screens. Almost nothing demanded a brand new memory, so almost nothing got recorded in detail. Your brain, looking back, finds very few footprints, and it concludes correctly by its own logic that barely any time has passed at all. A neuroscientist named David Eagleman tested a piece of this directly. He wanted to know whether frightening, novel moments actually change how much time we perceive. So he sent volunteers into terrifying free fall, dropping them backward off a tower, and asked them afterward how long the fall had lasted. They consistently overestimated. The fall felt far longer than it was. When something is intense and new, your brain switches into high-resolution recording, laying down far more detail than usual, and that flood of detail reads back to you as more time. Novelty does not just feel memorable. It literally stretches your sense of how long a moment took. So does that mean your years are doomed to shrink forever? This is where it turns from a fact into a choice. Because if time is built out of new memories, then a life without novelty is a life that will feel like it is disappearing. And the cruel trick of adulthood is that we are built to erase novelty on purpose. We call it efficiency. We build routines so we do not have to think. We automate our mornings, our commutes, our weeks, and every automation is a small deletion of memory. A smooth, frictionless, perfectly optimized life is, by this logic, a life your brain will barely remember living. The philosopher and psychologist William James wrote about this more than a century ago. He noticed that as we age, the days and weeks smooth into each other, and he argued that the only cure was to fill life with novel experiences, the kind that break the routine and force the mind to pay attention again. He understood long before the neuroscience that a forgettable life and a fast life are the same life. There is a researcher named Claudia Hammond who gathered much of this together, and she points to something she calls the holiday paradox. Think about a week somewhere new. While you're living it, packed with unfamiliar streets and new tastes and small adventures, the days feel full and almost slow. But the moment you return home, that week collapses in memory into something that feels like it lasted a heartbeat, because it was so dense with experience that recalling it floods you all at once. Novelty does something almost magical. It makes time feel long while you live it and rich when you look back. Routine does the exact opposite. It feels fast as you live it and leaves nothing behind. So the question is not really why time speeds up. The question is why you stopped collecting new things. Notice what this means. The speed of your life is not fixed. It is not a fate that arrives with age. It is a direct readout of how much genuine novelty you are still letting in. Every truly new experience is a weight on the scale, slowing the felt pace of your life and thickening your memory of it. A new route home. A skill you are bad at. A conversation with a stranger. A place you have never stood. Each one is your brain reaching for its pen again, the way it did when you were 8 and the whole world was first times. Have you let too many of your days become copies of each other? You cannot add hours to your life. Clock time is not yours to bargain with. But mind time, the time you actually feel, the only time you will ever truly experience, is far more in your hands than it seems. You can stretch a year simply by daring to fill it with things you have never done before. You can make the months feel wide again. You can, in a real and measurable sense, slow down time. So go back to that endless childhood summer. It did not feel forever because you were young. It felt forever because everything in it was new, every day a fresh page your brain could not help but fill. The summers did not get shorter when you grew up. You simply stopped writing them down. And the moment you start again, reaching for the new, the strange, the unfamiliar, you will feel the most extraordinary thing happen. Time just slightly beginning to stretch back open.